Today, I want to feature a bill that's before the state legislature, a bill that would split Kansas City, Missouri away from Jackson County. And I want to explain why exactly this is happening now, why this proposal is up there, and why it isn't really what it's being represented as, which, I mean, surprise, surprise, what is these days? Uh, Essentially, what this is they've seen the election results from this year and it terrifies them. It terrifies them because, oh my goodness, they're fighting for this redistricting. They're fighting against the voters to push through the redistricting. And they are concerned that that their victory on paper, on lines on maps, is going to result in possibly them losing more seats than they gain. And that's because they understand how much voters have turned against what is happening uh, in with the Trump administration. So they're looking for new ways to split us up. Now, what is the effect of carving out Kansas City, Missouri from Jackson County? Now, I mean, currently they're administratively different, right? There's a there's the the county legislature, yeah, the city board, they're but they still work together, right? They're all part of the same county. And that means that on paper, it puts Kansas City on the same level as the other communities, such as Independence. I mean, we all know 800-pound gorilla, but what it also does is it tells those people in these other communities that, hey, we may live in other cities, we may live in another city, but we're still part of the same county, right? We still have that extra that extra hook that we can use to have that common identity. We all go stand in line in the same DMVs. In fact, I go to the DMVs in other places because the one here is too long. I go to county courthouse that is not in Kansas City. Another one in Independence typically because that's out by where I work. And we in Kansas City would lose that ability to do those things if we are kind of cut out from Jackson County. I'm a public notary, and my notary stamp says, Jackson County. If Kansas City is cut off from Jackson County, then I would have to get a new one that says, I'd have to go through a whole new certification process in order to be able to stamp stuff because I do not, because the place where I work at is in Kansas City, not in and would not be in Jackson County anymore. So the county clerk would have no say over my notarization. I would not be um and that take that and multiply that across everybody who lives in one place, works in another. This is, and I understand what this is. This is an attempt by them to say, okay, we know that there is a good chance that instead of eliminating Cleaver's House seat, we're actually going to have him and we're going to have another one because people are so ticked off. So what do? We try to confine this blue bubble and we split it up in two, three different ways to try to dilute that, but it's not enough. We don't think that that is enough anymore. So we are going to take their identity and make it as completely separate from the other members of their district as possible so that we can create a greater us versus them mentality among voters that we think are on are can be persuadable to our side just on the basis of now it's those selfish assholes in Kansas City versus, you find people of Independence. And I'm just using that. I just keep going back to Independence because literally where I work is on, like, you go across the street either way and it is Independence, but my block is Kansas City. So this is something that I am very familiar with. And honestly, most people don't even think about it. We think about it in terms of, okay, where am I going to situate my business? Blah, 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 blah. But, you just these lines, they're lines on maps. They're not lines on streets. They have signs and all that, but we don't really care because, hey, you're across the street, but you're still my neighbor, right? But when you are now saying that okay, you're no longer subject to state to county taxes. You don't benefit from county taxes, but you're also not paying into county taxes. And so that little bit of financial that taxation, you're in a separate pot entirely. You're in a separate pot entirely. You may as well be out in Columbia or Springfield or Joplin or Cape Girardeau or somewhere else for because there's no connection. That is the connection, the taxation connection between the two. And what that means is that you don't have that. You no longer have taxation at the county level in common with with people outside of the on the other side of the city limits. There are fewer things that you fewer touch points that you have in common when you cross that line. And we all suffer for that. We all this hurts all of us. This is a detriment to all of us in the region. I mean, the I'm not from Kansas City, right? I think of it as a greater Kansas City area. Maybe in Overland Park, maybe in Leavenworth, maybe in Olathe, maybe in Independence, Blue Springs. I don't care. We're all part of the same economic and social engine, you know? And yeah, and yeah, I cross state lines there. I cross state lines there. But I'll tell you what, you have with that line division, okay, how significant can it be? Our As of January, uh our minimum wage in Missouri is going to $15 an hour. Kansas State of Kansas is still federal minimum wage of seven something an hour. I don't even know what it is anymore exactly because I haven't lived in a place that had that minimum wage in so long. It's a foreign concept to me to have to contend with that. And and so those little jurisdictional lines that they make real impacts on people. That means that we here in Kansas City will not be able to advocate for the well-being of people who live in Jackson County in the same way that we are now. And that's the truth. We will not have standing. We will not have standing to get involved to bring our, to bring the political and socioeconomic weight that we have to helping clear up problems in Jackson County. That's and again, and you look at what's happening at with the county legislature with and I won't say that I know very much about what's going on, and I should know a lot more, but um, we all have other things that we focus on and all that, and but there's all this upheaval going on, and I have to think that that is a part of this, and I have to think that it is all part of of trying to eliminate certain voices. I think it's I not even certain voices. I think it's just a matter of trying to create more divisions that make us more easily manipulated and so quick to and so easy to point fingers at somebody else just right over there and say they're the bad guy. And we are so full of those things already. It's to me it's always stuck out as a sign of how screwed up our society is. that so many of us have firearms and to protect ourselves in our homes because that's how scared we are of our neighbors. That's how scared we are of people that we share our streets with, we share our cities with, that we have this, and all of this division, this splitting us up is just more walls to divide us, more ways to make us distrust each other, and we know what the effect of this is. We know what the effect of it is. Look at the St. Louis area. Uh, St. Louis County versus St. Louis City. You look at Richmond, Virginia, which has the same thing. It used to be, 120 years ago or so, it was the in thing for cities to go, oh, well, we don't need to be a part of the county anymore. We are, and so you had that happen in different areas of the country. And what happened? Every time it was a mistake. Every time, all it did was erect barriers between people who had been cooperating and working together before. And suddenly, they're sitting on different sides of a line, and that line dominates their existence. It says, oh, well, you can't spend tax money to support this over here because you don't have a connection. You no longer have that local connection. It's used as a way to continue to foster this notion of rural versus city. That's something that I've seen my whole life, that there is this huge emphasis towards this social divide. And most of the divide is just because people decide that that's the issue to talk about. In practical matters, nobody in the city cares about what happens in the towns, in rural areas. We care about what's happening, in our, down the street, a few blocks over, whatever. Um, but there's just been this cultural war that continues to be. It actually goes back to the Civil War era, honestly, which kind of tells you the mentality behind that. I'm not saying that the same motives continue to exist today, but that is a symptom of how, but that shows how deep this division is. And this is going to just deepen those local divisions. And that's going to hamper our ability as a region, as an agglomeration of different communities. It's going to hamper our ability to work together to do something better. And and I'm not even going to say it's stupid, because I think that, I think that it is a smart thing on the part of the people who are currently running the state government, because they're running scared. They're running scared about what's going to happen in next year in the elections. And that is what is dominating their thought right now. They're what if this thing with the referendum, what if they have to accept it? What if they have to throw out the map that they did? What if they don't have to throw out the map that they did, and they have to work it, and they know that that map is going to hurt them in the elections? I mean, either way, it's going to be bad news for them. And this is the only way that they can see. This is the only way that they can see themselves having a chance of doing something productive for the next year. And it's goddamn disgusting that that is even a thing, that an election that happens in November would be considered like the one productive thing for the entire year. But you look at what's at stake on the national level, and I think a lot of people feel that way. Now, I personally don't feel that way, because my major concern is actually over in Ukraine. You know, I know people fighting over there. I know people who are helping people over there. That's my main concern. But it's very important to keep on top of this stuff. It's very important to understand these are not just random things of, oh, let's split Kansas City off from Jackson County. That is part of a pattern, part of a trend, part of a larger picture of creating dissension and confusion and division between neighbors. That's all it is. That's all it is. And am I surprised that they went down this road? No, I didn't see it coming, but I also didn't think that that was something that would actually be something that could be done. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a political professional, so things like this would not occur to me because I don't think about those things very much. But when I see them, I understand what they're saying. I understand what they're doing. And that's and I just wanted to let you all know what was actually going on and why this matters, why this should be something that concerns you, why this is something that if you're in either whether you're in Jackson County or you're in Kansas City, and I have to even talk like that, regardless of whether you're within Kansas City or not, and you live within Jackson County, this is alarming. This is alarming. This is going to change your tax burden. This is going to change how regulations play out. This is going to change how the local economy works. This is going to change how we're able to reach across between different communities and do big things. And thank you for watching. If you think this is important, like, subscribe, check out my Patreon, which is devoted to providing uh, affordable housing for people in the area. I have a whole Discord set up for people who join that has all sorts of notes and where things are at with that project. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.